This week, we're exploring a topic that affects every cattle operation around the country: internal parasite control and resistance management. Parasite infections are costly. In fact, they can cost your operation up to $200 per pair per grazing season in lost performance. It's really a problem you can't afford to ignore. Joining me for our discussion today are Dr. Kenton Morgan, a professional service veterinarian with Fort Dodge Animal Health. Also with us, Dr. Bill Clymer. He's a parasitologist, a researcher, and a rancher, I understand.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us. And finally, Dr. John Bill Oman. He comes to us from Avoca, Texas, and has his own stocker and cow-calf operation down there. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Let's get right to it. How do cattle become infected with parasites in the first place? Dr. Morgan?
Well, Kevin, it starts, that animal's going to pass manure. Parasite eggs will be in that manure, and if the humidity and temperature is right, those tiny parasite eggs will go through a maturation process and become small microscopic larvae. These larvae have the ability to actually crawl up the forage or blades of grass in the pasture a few centimeters. As cattle then graze, they ingest these larvae, and that starts the whole process.
Gotcha. Dr. Clymer, what would you add?
I think the main thing to consider here is the life cycle of the worm is going to vary with the individual species, but the main thing we need to remember, that animal is going to consume that small larvae. It's going to spend about a minimum time of 3 weeks before it reaches maturity and starts shedding eggs, although that period of time may be much longer than that. Some of the species, worms actually will embed in the wall of the gut and then come out at a later date. But eventually those eggs are going to be shed and they come out in the manure, start the process all over again. So we need to understand the life cycle to help us with our control.
You know, a question many producers have is, how do I tell whether or not my cattle even have a parasite problem? What would you tell them?
You know, the simplest way that we normally depend on is doing fecal egg counts, where we take a laboratory technique, and you need to check with your local veterinarian to have these tests run. But the other thing is, if we have what we call clinical parasitism, you're going to have a condition known as bottle jaw, which is a lot of edema underneath the jaw or the head of the animal. You'll have the expanded or extended abdomen, pot-bellied appearance, could have diarrhea, a lot of other physical symptoms, rough hair coat, some of those things. But the ones that we lose the most money from are the ones that have some of those symptoms but very discreet, and they don't. It's not like we're waving a flag, say, hey, I need to be dewormed. And those are the ones that probably hurt us the most because we ignore the symptoms and end up suffering the consequences.
You bet. John Bill, you have your own operation. Practically speaking, what are you looking for relative to parasites?
Well, Kevin, I look at various things out there, but the thing that we look at, we see an animal that has a rough hair coat, doing poorly. We start suspicioning maybe there's a parasite problem here. And of course, as Dr. Clymer said, we take stool specimens or fecal samples and look for eggs. But we look for that poor doing animal. And then also, I normally look at the area of the country those cattle are coming from. Various problems come from various parts of the country, especially when you're in the stocker business. Most of these cattle are put together from various locations. So we get them from all over. So the easiest thing to do, rather than worry too much about it, we just worm those cattle.
Gotcha. Well, once we've defined that we have a need, Dr. Morgan, when do we know how to start or when to start our treatment?
Well, in a cow-calf setting, a good time to begin is in the spring. And there's a lot of variables go in to the program, and a lot of operations will deworm in the spring and fall both. But the climate, the geography, the stocking rate, all those things will impact that program. So this is a really good discussion for the producer to have with their veterinarian, sit down, lay out a program for that operation. But in general, if we're going to deworm in the spring, we're typically going to do that about 4 to 6 weeks after pasture green up. If we're looking at also a fall program, then we like to do that just right after a good hard killing freeze or hard frost.
What products would you recommend producers use?
Well, there again, there's a lot to choose from. Start with kind of the basics. There's still some granule or block products that are out there. The problem with those products, it's really hard to get the proper dosage in each animal. And then, of course, we still have the benzimidazoles, or sometimes what we call the white wormers. These products are still They're older products, but they're still effective in some operations. Thing we have to remember about the benzimidazoles or the white wormers, dewormers, they are really purge wormer. They don't hang around in the animal very long, short duration of activity. And then of course we have the ivermectin products. They too have been in the market for some time, but can still be used very effectively, available in multiple different formulations, pour-on, injectable. And then of course we have some of the newer milbemycin products such as moxidectin. That product also, you can get it in a topical pour-on formulation or injectable, very effective. And not only does it get the adult parasites like some of the other products, it also will get many of the encysted stages as well.
That's helpful insight. So we know when to start and what products we can choose from. But tell us, should we treat cows and calves at the same time? Dr. Oman, what's your experience?
Well, we do in our operation. The feeling about that is we're going to treat those cows anyway. And those calves are young at that point in time. If that cow is shedding eggs at that point and that calf is beginning to eat grass and ruminate, he's going to begin to pick these eggs up or these larval stages up. And if we don't worm that calf, then they got a foothold on the calf as well. So when you're putting the cows through, you're working your calves, why not do both at the same time? So you clean up the mother and you clean the calf up at the same time. And the other thing I look at in my operation, and I recommend to my producers, we look at the time of the year. We worry in Texas and New Mexico and other parts of the country, but especially in that part of the United States, we worry about grubs. Grubs, if we worm those cows with a product that is also a degrubbing agent, we do that in the springtime of the year, once the heel fly set its eggs. Then if we missed any of those, when we reworm in the fall, we'll finally clean up the rest of those grubs if we missed any of those cows in the springtime.